This is Linda Joy McKell, and I would like to share a short life story of my mother, Joy McKell. Dona Joy Peters McKell, also known as Joy, was born in Pocatello, Idaho, the first of 4 daughters born to Edward Lloyd Peters and Donna Blanche Waters on July 31st, 1927. She was a beautiful baby and a lovely young woman. Although she was born in Idaho, she grew up in several states. Her mother, Donna, was from Rigby, Idaho, but her father was from Brigham City, Utah. Her father was a postal telegraph operator, and they had an opportunity to work in Kingman, Arizona. So they decided to move there in the 1930s. By that time, they had 3 daughters, Donna Joy, Carmen Carolyn, and Beverly Jean Peters. While living in Kingman, Joy was baptized a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in a members' swimming pool. She felt so good afterwards, she thought she could swim, and jumped back into the pool. Unfortunately, she could not swim, and she sank to the bottom. Her father jumped in with all his clothes on and rescued her. That was the beginning of her fear of water, swimming, boating, etc. However, she did love watching the ocean and walking on the beach, and, to her credit, she made sure all of her children had swimming lessons, and we all enjoy the water. Eventually, her father took a job in Fresno, California, where Joy and the girls spent most of their middle childhood years. They loved driving to Yosemite and Bass Lake. A friend of their family had a cabin up there, and they would often go to visit. They all loved to play softball. Even though their father did not have a son, they all took part in playing with him. He kept a ball and bat in his car for times when they would go for a drive and find an open field and play together. Also, their 4th daughter, Iretta Dolores, was born while they were in Fresno. Joy went to 3 years of high school in Fresno and learned to jitterbug when she went out to the local army base to help with the USO activities for the troops during World War II. When her father had some health issues, they ended up moving back to his hometown of Brigham City just before Joy's senior year in high school. While that was difficult, she was quite a popular girl among the young men known as the California Girl. Saying she loved to dance is an understatement. She was quite the jitterbug queen. She kept that love throughout her life. Unfortunately, she married a man who was not a dancer. But she would dance with her sisters and her children and anyone who wanted to dance. After high school, her father was able to get a job back in Redwood City, California, working for his wife's uncle, Henry Cowan. Henry owned a construction company and needed a secretary-treasurer. Although Lloyd did not have that kind of experience, he was the most honest person that Henry knew and was offered the job. So the family moved back to California. Joy was now out of high school, and she got a job working for a little while at United Airlines at San Francisco Airport. Then her father encouraged her to go to college, and she went back to Utah to go to BYU. She was only there for 1 semester when she met Fred Allen McKell. Fred was just out of the Army, where he had served in the Philippines for 2 years during World War II. He was able to go to BYU on a military scholarship. Joy was living in a basement apartment with some other girls when one evening a few fellows knocked on their door. They were looking for one of her roommates. But when Fred saw Joy, he was mesmerized. He talked with her all evening, and he returned for the next 3 weeks, during which he proposed marriage to her. She said that was nice, but they needed to have more time to get to know each other. So they dated 6 more weeks, and he proposed again, at which time she accepted. They set the date for August 17th, 1948, which was about 8 months after they met. Joy and Fred were married in the Salt Lake Temple. Her parents had offered to give them the money for a reception or a honeymoon. They picked a honeymoon. They drove up to Yellowstone, and that was one of their favorite places to go after that. Fred was working in Salt Lake for Sears, and they moved in with his mother, after they were married. Neither one of them ever returned to finish college, but they were very encouraging of their children to go, and all of us graduated from BYU. After their marriage in 1949, Joy was expecting her first child, Linda Joy, me. At Christmas time that year, they decided to drive out to Palo Alto and visit her parents. As the story goes, it was snowing and blowing during the drive, but when they got to California, it was like a curtain went up and there was beautiful sunshine. By the time they got to Palo Alto, Fred said to Joy, "What are we doing living in Utah?" And they made the decision to go back early. A week later, they packed up their things and moved to California. They never regretted it. When they arrived in Palo Alto, they had $5 in their pocket. They stayed for a little while with her parents until Fred got a job as a janitor at a meatpacking plant called Swift & Company. They got a little apartment in Redwood City, and Linda was born at Stanford Hospital in Palo Alto, close by. Joy loved being a wife and mother. Fred was the money maker, and Joy was the money manager. She kept a little notebook throughout her life with every check he brought home and the expenses for each week. There was not much left over at that time, but they managed their expenses well in a time before credit cards. I have a memory when I was in high school of them planning to take us to a rodeo on Saturday that was an hour away. When the time came to go, Mom indicated we couldn't because we did not have enough gas money. We went to get ice cream cones instead. As time went by, Joy and Fred managed their finances so well, they were able to buy their first home in Sunnyvale, California. Fred had progressed from janitor to working in the accounting department at Swift & Company. He continued working in accounting for 20 years for various companies, during which time Brad was born in Sequoia Hospital in Redwood City. After living in Sunnyvale for a couple of years, they moved to Los Altos and then to Los Altos Hills. Los Altos Hills is a very nice area consisting of homes on 1 acre of land. They bought an acre filled with apricot trees right across from where Pinewood School is now and built a home on Weston Road. After only about a year and a half there, they decided to make a radical change. They moved to Brigham City, Utah, to be closer to family. Many years before, Joy's father Lloyd had passed away and her mother Dona had moved back to Brigham City on the Peters property in Perry. Fred took a job as an accountant at Thiokol, a government contractor company close to Brigham. They purchased a home there after living several months with Joy's mother. At the time, I was in the middle of 6th grade and went to all of 7th grade out in Brigham City. However, after that year and a half, they realized how much they missed California and we moved back. They brought a new addition to the family with them, a son named Chris Peters. When they moved back this time, they were not able to afford to live in Los Altos Hills, but bought a house at 693 Camellia Way in Los Altos, close by. This was the home they lived in the longest to that point, from 1962 to 1978. Linda, Brad, and Chris all graduated from Los Altos High School. Even though they enjoyed living there, Fred and Joy always wanted to move back to the hills of Los Altos. In 1979, they realized their dream of returning when they purchased an acre at 26321 Alexander Place. Chris actually went to his senior year of high school while living at Alexander. And they built their dream home. They lived there for the next 40 years. Joy and Fred made a great team. They loved each other dearly, and they progressed from $5 in their pocket at the start of their marriage and life in California to living in lovely Los Altos Hills. After they moved back from Utah, Fred made another major decision to quit accounting and become a state farm insurance agent. He went from a salaried job with benefits to being an independent contractor on 100% commission. Joy supported his decision and did what she could to continue managing the money and to work part-time in his office. They went on not only to pay off their home, but to buy a couple of small office buildings in downtown Mountain View, where he was able to have his own office. They continually thought about ways to help their family and provide for the future. They succeeded in their goals. Some of Joy's interests were flowers and gardening, shell and rock collecting, stitchery and embroidery, decorating her home and keeping it immaculate, cooking and baking an amazing array of cookies. We have a nice copy of her cookbook, courtesy of Aunt Dolores Dorius, Joy's youngest sister, who typed her recipes and made a nice cookbook for her. Joy was a loving and loyal wife and mother. She was creative with the finances and always made a beautiful, comfortable home for her family. She will be missed, but we're so happy for her reunion with the family members who passed before her. And I'm sure our dad, Fred, was waiting with open arms for her.